all gathered here today with the solemn belief that entrepreneurship will accelerate growth and impact in Africa. And I'm very heartened to see this community grow over the decades of the convenings we have hosted. 15 years ago, we embarked on a thrilling journey to ignite change and support social entrepreneurs across the vibrant landscapes within the global South. Our path was clear, and since then, it's been an exhilarating journey, a movement that has showcased the passion and commitment of more than 2,350 entrepreneurs. Across 33 unforgettable editions, we have built bridges, linked entrepreneurs with over 1,000 eager investors, shaping a future for endless possibilities. And as a result, a staggering 800 million USD in funding and a generous disbursement of over 1.2 million in grants to entrepreneurs. But the numbers only tell part of the story. At its core, Sankalp has been about fostering connections, nurturing dreams, and redefining the paradigms of sustainable development. Please join me in welcoming the CEO of Intellicap, Vikas Pali. Round of applause as Vikas.
Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have been energized with the yoga dancing. For me personally, I'll have to apply for leave to my boss, who's sitting somewhere in this room. I haven't done so much exercise in a decade, so if I run out of breath, please pardon me. On behalf of the Avishkar and Intellicap team, I am delighted to welcome all of you to the 11th Sankalp Summit. Intellicap as an institution is for the entrepreneurs, by the entrepreneurs, and of the entrepreneurs. Sankalp is just one dimension of what Intellicap does to promote impact entrepreneurship across the entire global South. What's a testament to this? At last count, there were 595 entrepreneurs registered for this summit. 595. They're coming in from 28 different countries across the continent. And what really warms my heart is that 250 of the entrepreneurs are women. That tells us that we are on the right track. To all the entrepreneurs who are here for networking, for speaking with investors, for speaking with ecosystem builders, there is a plethora of opportunities for you. Guess what? There are 88 investors who are going to be participating in the summit over the next 48 hours. 50% of them are coming to Sankalp for the first time. That means the bandwagon is growing. Your energy of overcoming the environment is inviting the investors to participate in this journey going forward. These investors are of all hues, starting with ticket sizes of $100,000, going all the way to millions of dollars. But 30 of them have expressed an interest in 100,000 to 500,000 ticket sizes. So entrepreneurs, make a mental note. We need to learn to speak the language of whom we are pitching to. So if you have all of this information organized, as you approach the person, it may make your conversations more fruitful. Last but not the least, another very, very important stakeholder in taking the journey forward is the developmental financial institutions and philanthropic foundations. And there are 35 of them at the summit. Use the opportunity to connect, chat, and collaborate. That's what the thesis of Sankalp is. Connect, chat, and collaborate. Intellicap as an institution does a lot more. We have a consulting business, we have an investment banking business, and some of the statistics that you saw showcase the body of work that we as an institution have been able to do over the last 2 decades. And specifically the last 1 decade in Nairobi and in East Africa. As an institution, there are 4 broad problem areas that we are working on. Number 1, climate change. Climate change as it affects the individual, as it affects the farmers, and as it affects the institutions, particularly from a decarbonization agenda. The second problem that we are trying to solve for is financial inclusion, and specifically how digital financial services can help further include those who have been financially excluded. The third problem that we are trying to solve for is access to universal basic services: water, sanitation, hygiene, health, nutrition. And last, but I would guess the most important problem, is the problem of jobs. Across the global south, but particularly true for the African continent as well. How do the youngsters find jobs? Is skills to jobs the way to take it forward, or is it skills to enterprise? And these are essentially the 4 key areas that Intellicap as an institution, along with its partners, has been working over the last 5 to 10 years to find credible solutions. In order to find these solutions, there are 3 programmatic interventions that we have been working on. The first one is very enterprise-centric: search, seed, support, scale, enterprise. And just an example here, we've been working with the Rockefeller Foundation for the last couple of years to identify enterprises in the nutritious food space and to scale these entrepreneurs over a 3 to 5 year journey such that they will be able to impact the lives of many, many more people and provide them access to nutritious food. As we stand today, 30,000 people are getting a nutritious 3 meals every day for the year. We hope in the next few years this number will become 1 million. That's the attempt that Intellicap is doing along with its partners by providing them technical assistance, by providing them returnable capital, and helping them scale up their business models. So that's the example of Search, Seed, Support, Scale as one program that Intellicap as an institution runs. The second example is of working with the private sector, co-opting the private sector into the development agenda. All of us know that their role is absolutely critical in taking the journey forward, particularly from a climate agenda standpoint. So we've run programs on decarbonizing select industries, including textiles, and we hope to make an impact in many, many more such industries. Last but not the least, our programmatic intervention is finding the right kind of financing structures which will help facilitate the growth of the enterprises. We've worked with the International Solar Alliance, which is more than 120 member body entity, and we helped them develop a blended finance facility for solarization of Africa. This involves bringing together philanthropic foundations, governments, developmental financial institutions to put together a pool of money which can help provide access to capital for the entrepreneurs to scale their business models, such that at the end of a journey, commercial capital, debt, or equity can flow into the enterprises. So these are the 3 programs that we typically run in order to create the impact. What are our learnings from doing all of this work? And there are 3-fold. First, for entrepreneurs to succeed, they need capital, knowledge, networks, technology, not at different points in time, at the same point in time. They need everything to come together for them to become successful. Very often we have heard our partners talk about, can we do an investor readiness program? But what's the relevance of an investor program if the business models are not baked? So put revenues first and then investments, and that's the way capital can flow through. So that's our first learning. Everything needs to come together at the same time. The second learning, a lot of the philanthropic foundations, a lot of the developmental financial institutions have created their own pockets of excellence. I imagine how much effort is required to prevent the planet from going back to the Ice Age. All of you as early torchbearers need to catalyze the change by sparking that hope, that belief in all your stakeholders, in all your businesses, in all the people that you connect, that our time is now. And we need to address the change issues now. With that, I welcome all of you once again. I hope you have a great 2 days. If anything can be done by myself or my team, we are more than happy to help you navigate the next 2 days such that there'll be a lot more change makers as we end the journey tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vikas, for that inspiring speech. Once again, round of applause for that. Ladies and gentlemen, join me with a round of applause as we welcome Josh Whale, the founder and CEO of Ampersand.
All right, thank you. You can hear me okay? Great. So thank you so much for having me on stage today. My first Sankalp was back in 2017, so it's a real honor and a sense of full circle standing up here today. Now, as we've heard, the hardworking team here has had to adapt to the weather. So I've also been asked to demonstrate a bit of an important entrepreneurial skill, which is the pivot. So rather than showing my slide presentation, I was asked a short time ago to instead speak to some talking points instead. So please bear with me as we innovate together. So climate change is, as we've heard already, by far the single most serious existential threat of our century. For those young entrepreneurs out there who are still not sure what their cause ought to be, I can certainly say look no further. And in the global battle against climate change, Africa presents opportunities to not merely adapt and adopt clean technologies from the rest of the world for the continent. I'm here to share my story today because it actually goes further than that. Africa presents opportunities to actually lead the world, to drive the change, to be first and not last, to actually provide the critical commercially viable proofs of concept that the world needs to drive the next increment of technologies, the key climate technologies that the world so desperately needs. So in my sector, for example, in clean transport, that includes the world's first medical drone deliveries. It includes the first, I think it also includes probably short-range electric aviation. We haven't seen that happen yet. But it also includes truly mass-market electric mobility for public transport, and specifically for the 50% of Africa's road traffic that today is served by commercial motorcycles for deliveries, for taxis, bodabodas, motos, zemijans, okadas, from Dar to Dakar. These motorbikes currently burn 20% of fuel sold on the continent, and a fuel market worth roughly $50 billion a year. So what we do, for those of you who don't know us, so we're the first electric vehicle company on the continent. We're also the leading EV energy company on the continent. We power 2,100 electric motorcycles in Rwanda and Kenya. Together, they currently cover around 1.5 million kilometers a day. We do this with a fleet of proprietary batteries that we actually developed and manufacture at our factory in Kigali, and we then rent these batteries out to Boda drivers from a network of battery swapping stations. We also have a software backend that makes the whole system work seamlessly. Unlike most EVs globally, the key thing about this segment and why we chose it was that it's all about OPEX and reliability, and the utilization rate is so intense. As a result, we save customers 35% of their operating costs. So going electric is not the more expensive option. It saves money. And the vehicle itself costs about the same to buy as well. We're already, with just 2,100 vehicles on the road, already earning better margins with faster return on capital than the fuel retail giants that have dominated transport energy for the past 120 years. Also faster, I would say, than renewable energy. So 2 of these fuel retail corporates have actually woken up and are already operating partners and equity investors of ours. And what we've seen is a real supporting force behind us with government policy. High fuel prices, ironically thanks to Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine, have driven interest rates. They've driven up the cost of fuel, and so governments across the continent are desperate to reduce forex costs, and fuel imports are the single largest drain on hard currency reserves across the continent. So we've seen a fantastic level of support, and in fact we've seen the Rwandan, Ugandan, and Kenyan governments all make various commitments to replace all vehicles, if not specifically electric boda-bodas in particular, within the next 10 years or so. So I was also asked to present some calls to action for the ecosystem. Now, I'm heartened to say that we've seen a high degree of VC interest in e-mobility and in our business model in particular. It's been a learning curve, certainly for a lot of VCs. A lot of VCs don't traditionally do hardware, and particularly where there are assets on the balance sheet, and EVs are complex tech. But we have also seen a lot of VCs that are still coming in with a very, very PE, private equity kind of mindset. So valuing a company like ours the same way that you would value a car importer, so 1 year trailing ARR, just doesn't fit with the needs. So there's a need to adapt those methodologies. We also do need to see more investors working in VC who have actually built up startups with a mix of both Africa experience and outside experience. People like our wonderful former board member, Lindsay Handler, who's now at Delta 40, who built up Phoenix in Uganda. A lot of big climate capital has moved towards Africa, as many of you will know, but a lot of it has gone actually into traditional PE funds that can absorb a lot of money, and we're not seeing that being a fit for models, businesses like ours. There also does appear to be a debt funding gap for working capital, so around the $2 to $5 million ticket size for businesses that are post-revenue but pre-profit. We would also love, and I'm probably dreaming here, but I would love to see some harmonized impact KPIs. Everybody has their own set of KPIs, and our CFO probably spends about 2 or 3 days a month reporting on that. So it's an enormous waste of time. An old refrain that you'll all know: the time and duration of a process to close on grants and on VC capital is a real challenge. It's I would suggest that there needs to be a time budget, and that it needs to be a performance KPIs for hours spent for both the VC and the startup team to actually close a deal. Needs to be a performance KPI. And finally, we all know the sector as a whole needs exits. Both the VCs need to be able to show successful exits, and the startups need to, at some point, either get acquired or IPO. And I guess my challenge to those who support the sector is to see if there are ways to de-risk this for potential acquirers, to do the DD grunt work for M&A teams. I don't know if it's tax breaks from foreign governments, but to unlock the big corporates to actually go out and buy companies and produce the exits that the sector needs. Thank you all so much. It's been an honor, and I hope some of that is useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh, for sharing with us your solution by Ampersand, which is quite modern and also addresses that, Africa goes beyond profit, and it's a solution that is going towards solving the climate crisis. I'd like to invite Gayatri Dutta from Earth Enable. Earth Enable aims at improving the health of low-income families by replacing dirt floors with affordable earthen floors. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Gayatri to the stage. And I'd like to request that we also keep our speeches short so that we can also have time for other sessions. Thank you.
Noted. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Okay, so I'm going to make you stand up again. We're going to start with a quiz. Imagine it is 2050, and of all the houses that exist in 2050, you're going to guess what percentage of them will need to be built between now and then. Is the question clear? So if you think all the houses already exist, it's 0. So stand up. 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 All right. If you think that less than 20% of the houses still need to be built, that people will be living in Africa in 2050, sit down. Less than 20%. No takers. Okay, 20 to 40%. Also no takers. Okay, 40 to 60%. Okay. Okay, so that means all of you standing think that over 80% of the houses still need to be built. Over 80. You're right. Exactly. Well done. So this is kind of staggering. That's a lot of, I think it's actually closer to 90 by 2050. This is a huge number because when you think about the housing sector and the construction sector, 50% of all extraction that happens for the building sector. And the construction sector is responsible for 11% of carbon emissions. So when we imagine the 150 million tons that we've calculated, we think that's about how many tons would be emitted if we continue building with conventional materials, burned bricks, steel, concrete, cement. So that's not great because, as we know, climate change is impacting disproportionately the poorest of the poor. So in addition to climate change's impacts, I mean, we're seeing housing fall down left and right. Every rainy season is terrifying. Landslides, all kinds of things are happening, despite Africa only being responsible for 10% of the emissions. So that's not great, and if only we had another solution, some foreshadowing. In addition to that, while Africa currently builds pretty green with earth and sticks and stones, the issue is that it's not very climate resilient for the reasons I said. So unsafe structures, and in addition to that, a lot of the structures are not safe. So from a health perspective, they could harbor lots of pathogens, lots of parasites, lots of bacteria. So while current building methods aren't very safe, building with safe methods that we know would emit 150 million tons of emissions, which is, again, not great. So we need another solution, and that is where my story starts. So my name is Gayatri Dutta. Earth Enable is the name of my organization. Started 10 years ago now when I was a little baby student at business school, and we went to Rwanda as part of a class with the design challenge of finding a way to make homes healthier in rural Rwanda. So we go there and we look at all kinds of things like, water filters, gardens, kitchen gardens, all kinds of stuff. And eventually, we just keep noticing that as women are sweeping the dirt floor, there's dust clouds everywhere. They start coughing, I start coughing. Babies are never potty trained, so they go to the bathroom on the floor, and that obviously can have a lot of parasites and other bacteria that kids are then exposed to. And it actually turns out, a study showed that replacing a dirt floor with a clean floor reduces diarrhea by 49% and parasitic infections by 78%. But obviously, cement isn't affordable. So most people just have a dirt floor. So we went back to school obsessed with the floor, very, I know, niche focus here, but very obsessed with trying to find a way to make this better. And luckily came across a lot of people who in California and other places in the Western US were building with earth. So basically compressing earth-based materials, sand, clay, rocky soils, and then sealing it with plant oils. So flax oil is the oil that we use. We treat it with our proprietary catalyst that makes it turn into a plastic-like resin. This is what it looks like. You can come and touch it later. It's very pretty. And as a result, it becomes waterproof. The dirt becomes waterproof. It's awesome. And so as a result, we have a floor that is 80% cheaper than a concrete floor and 96% fewer carbon emissions. So thanks, guys. And we did not stop at just floors. So we realized that if our vision and our mission is to find a way to eradicate unhealthy and unsafe living conditions across Africa, we needed to move beyond the floor. So we worked on plasters, and then we worked with the Rwandan government to write a standard for an adobe block, if they're rukarakara, for any Rwandans in the house. And basically, we found a way to build with earth that is much, much safer than the standard ways of building. And we passed a policy that regulates how to build with adobe blocks in a way that is actually Rwanda are about $2,000 for a 25 square meter house. Do I get claps for that too? Yeah. Okay. So far, I think the thing I'm most proud of is our business model. We have created thousands and thousands of jobs because we work with masons to train them, to certify them, even innovate with them. During COVID, when everyone worked from home, we also kept paying masons to work from home by finding ways to work with whatever materials they could find in their backyard. So instead of trucking laterite and sand and clay all over the country, very expensive, very emitting, we now source all materials just directly from a couple meters away. So our vision is for there to be this affordable housing industry that is climate smart, climate resilient. And to do that, a lot of different things need to happen and need to come together. First of all, there aren't technologies currently that are truly affordable to the mass market. So but the good news is that there is a ton of stuff coming into the pipeline. So there hasn't been a lot of investment in shelter tech. Shelter tech being technologies that improve shelter in an affordable way to actually solve this affordable housing crisis. And that is just a huge area ripe for investment. Secondly, financing. The poorest people on earth pay for their houses with cash, bit by bit. And where I'm from, my sister has a 30-year mortgage in the United States that she pays, I think, like a couple percentage interest points on. So it's really something that needs to be developed. There needs to be financing instruments that actually work. And lastly, we need policy that really enables this whole ecosystem to develop. Our homes are literally the foundation of our entire lives, and that pun was intended. People spend half their lives at home, and they should not be living in places that make them sick, that are unsafe and might fall down, and that they can't afford to make them comfortable. That's not acceptable, and the good news is that there's an amazing set of innovations that are on the way. So I have to give a shout out to Habitat for Humanity, who has really played an amazing role convening lots of industry players. And today at 2 o'clock, you can come to their session where you can find out how you can be part of this movement that can really forever transform the way that we all live. Thank you.
I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Vineet Rai, founder and chairman, Avishka Group, who will shed light on important issues that need to be addressed, and most importantly, how organizations need to pivot their strategies. Round of applause as you welcome.
Ooh, I always thought politicians make good speeches, and entrepreneurs are really bad at it. I was proven wrong by Gayatri. Yeah, so I think it's very simplistic for me to say that we are at a crossroads at global economy. There are challenges, there are wars, financial stress, inflation, and all kind of challenges that actually impact Africa. And I don't think so Africa as a continent can just stand there and not look at these gigantic geographical structural changes that are taking place and not react to it. And I was then trying to reflect from an India's perspective. India is pretty much 1/10 geographical size of Africa. But we are, in terms of economy, are slightly bigger than Africa on a GDP basis. We're closing on to 4 trillion. Africa is around 3 trillion. In terms of population, almost the same. We have a chance of becoming larger and larger. We are 1.4 billion. We are close to 1 billion. There are a few things that we can actually learn between India and Africa. We have started demonstrating our potential to the world from an economic point of view. And this demonstration is not like what happened in the West. It is not like what happened in China. It's slightly different. And therefore, it may have some relevance to Africa. And that's what I thought. The dance of elephant that is taking place in India, and given that elephant is the king of the jungle here, I know a lot of people think lion is, but I think most people consider elephant as the king of the jungle. Unlike China, in India, the entrepreneurial economy to flourish and thrive and allow our GDP to expand. And I think Indian government has taken some very brave and very different calls. For example, Government of India launched UPI, United Payment Interface, which pretty much allows any small-time entrepreneur to compete with giants like Visa, MasterCard, etc. Now, that is actually a government initiative that allows the entrepreneurial economy to flourish. Of course, there are lots of people who believe that you have taken away $1 trillion potential of investing in generating very large unicorn there. But I think this is actually what democratizes entrepreneurship in India. ONDC, another open network for digital connect, is actually a brilliant move that Government of India did, which will allow very small entrepreneurs, women living in their homes, to actually have access and ability to be entrepreneurs without being subservient to a very large institution, which may not actually have its ownership sitting within India. So some of these ideas could actually be thought about the governments here in Africa as well. My personal journey has 5-6 words which actually will resonate with some of you, specifically when it comes to just transition. My first word of choice is choice. I'm a forester by training. I used to live in a forest. I used to meet very young and very poor people who had aspirations, and I'm talking about 97, 98, 99, and these young people wanted to be rich. I, as a middle-class guy, was not introduced to the word rich. I knew instinctively what rich meant, but I wanted to find the real meaning of rich. And a lot of my searching took me to the meaning of rich is not about wealth or money. It is about right to make choices. And the moment I understood that it is the right to make choices, around the same time I got introduced to a concept called venture capital. And I thought, how about if I actually have the capability to collect a lot of money and give it to aspirational young minds to unleash entrepreneurial talent, to create choices for the masses. I was not trying to use venture capital to make great returns. I was trying to unleash entrepreneurial mind to make big difference to the choices that masses make. And I think that's really how I started my journey. My second word is ecosystem. The fact that you are here in this room, you are actually contributing to building an ecosystem. This is a word that I draw from my background. Ecosystem does not come from finance, it comes from forestry. But ecosystem does not happen on its own. I was a 29-year-old forester who wanted to raise money. It took me 5 years to reach $1 million, 26 December 2005. That's when I reached my $1 million. And I did not reach here because I was good. I was reasonably incompetent. But there were certain Praveen Gandhis, Anant Nageshwaran, and many other similar Indians who backed me, who had the understanding and the knowledge to allow me to shine and succeed. I think Africa has to look for those leaders who are willing to find somebody like me and back them to be successful. To me, that's what an ecosystem does. This place right now is one part of the ecosystem. Africa needs a very large ecosystem. We are a small contributor to it, but hopefully much more such things will happen. My third word is humility. I know there are entrepreneurs here, but there are lots of us who are actually capital providers. We have to remember we are a catalyst, we are not the equation. We are just a lever. Money is a commodity. You must feel proud, and sometimes we as money providers also feel arrogant. But remember that it is the entrepreneur who will make the change. We are just the cheer girls or cheer boys standing on the sides. Just keep that in mind when you give your money to others. My fourth word is governance. As we actually think about just transition, transparency and governance are going to play a very important role. Unfortunately, whether I like it or not, my community, which is the investing community, does a massive amount of lip service to governance. But when it comes to our own rights, the shareholder rights, we start taking vetoes and do not allow or train young minds or young entrepreneurs on how to build guardrails. And to me, governance for young entrepreneurs is essentially help for them to avoid missteps. In India, as we have seen, very large companies have actually seen serious governance issues because the entrepreneurs did not understand what they are doing while trying to build these large institutions. I think it will be difficult for us in a continent like Africa to actually deal with challenges of governance, even though they will emerge. So those who are in leadership position must look at it seriously. I think, again, to both entrepreneurs, investors, development finance institutions, regulation will play a big role as challenges around impact washing, greenwashing comes through. We must avoid missteps on that side as much as possible and work with regulators. I know it is difficult for regulators to predict the future. These are people who look at the past and try to actually regulate. In a very fast evolving technology-driven economy, regulation is going to play a very important role, whether we like it or not. The sixth word that I actually bring from my perspective, I talked about choices. That's what we want to do. But the more important part about choices is they have to be sustainable. So every time you look for making your investment, do think about sustainability. My final word is impact. All investments deliver impact, but not every investment is impact investing. And I think it's very important to just understand the difference. When I started off in 2001, the term didn't exist. It came into being in 2008 when some of us got together to try to re-christen ourselves as one. More so because we found it very difficult to take money from those who were larger institutions. So we wanted a term called impact investing there. I'm very happy that while it took me 4 years or 5 years to reach $1 million, the impact investing ecosystem in 15 years claims to be $1 trillion. Now, whether the intentionality is there or not, I do not know, but $1 trillion is a large number to make a difference. And finally, as I conclude, I just wanted to draw everybody's attention that when we talk about just transition, in 2015, Sustainable Development Goals came into being. And if anything, they are probably one of the most powerful documentation of what just transition should. Each one of us sitting here has a role to play in making those goals find their destination, which was a world free of hunger, free of poverty, free of inequity by 2030. We are still 6 years away. I know there is a lot of desperation and there is a lot of feeling that we might miss those targets. But an attempt to have a world like it never existed before is a worthy and laudable effort. And that each one of us have a right to participate in it is a great achievement. Do not miss the opportunity to change the world as it has never existed before. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that participation. And I think what we can gather from this session that we've had so far, from all the speeches we've had from Vineet and from Vikas, and from also the entrepreneurship, the entrepreneurs who have spoken, I think we can take home that we've had the challenges entrepreneurs are specifically facing in Africa. We have also listened to solutions and interventions and commitments from Vikas and Vineet for the ecosystem to thrive, to create impact. We need more organizations to take similar measures, and it gives me great pride to invite a panel of speakers. So the speakers we have are going to share their strategies as well. And next on stage, join me as we welcome capital providers from different organizations who will delve deeply into the topic, catalyzing impact, charting the path to prosperity. At this moment, I'd like to invite Ariane Chebet, the Strategic Business Development Lead at CNBC Africa. Kindly take lead as we steer the panel.
Theo, thank you so much, and of course thanks to all the speakers that have been here this morning for just setting the pace for our first panel discussion this morning. And the goals for this session, just to quickly take you through what to expect, is to discuss and showcase Africa's potential and facilitate increased capital flow. We'll also explore ways of seamless transition for Africa from aid-based to a trade-based economy, and we'll also talk about how to accelerate the role of technology in safeguarding people and the continent from the climate crisis. And I'd like to now welcome our distinguished panelists, beginning with Mary Porter-Peshka. Let's give a warm round of applause as she makes her way to the stage. Mary is the Regional Director for East Africa at the International Finance Corporation. I'd like to welcome Mr. Jules Sankalp. Jules is the CEO of the African Guarantee Fund. Let's give him a warm round of applause as well. I'd like to welcome Michael Fabroni from Responsibility AG. He's the Head of Finance, Financial Institutions, Debt Africa at Responsibility AG, and Oscar Njuguna, the CEO of the Nairobi International Finance Center. Let's give them a warm round of applause as we kick off our conversation. So I've just taken about a minute and a half of our 35 minutes with the introductions, which means we just have about 33 minutes to fully discuss the topics that are ahead of us this morning. And Mary, I'll quickly start off with you. And of course, the theme for this session is charting the path to prosperity. And given your experience within the sustainability space as an expert within the IFC, can you articulate for us a comprehensive strategic framework? Of course, delineating the necessary capital structures and commitments required from the ecosystem. That's a word we've really heard a lot about this morning, to support sustainable growth across the continent.
So I think ecosystem is the word of the day. And the point is, you need one if you want to chart a sustainable path of growth. And for me, Africa's not going to reach its potential. It's not going to deliver on the African Union agenda, let alone on the SDGs, if it doesn't have a robust private sector. And I think there are three key things when you want to have a robust private sector, when you want to channel capital into the continent. I think of it as the 3 C's. You need a conducive business enabling environment. We heard the reference to policy a couple times already this morning. You need capacity. That might be capacity to start and keep going, but it's also about the business model, having the right business model, as we heard from Vika. It's about having a bankable project. And then, of course, you need capital. And in Africa, we need a lot of capital for the SDGs overall, but if you only think about climate, you know that we need $190 billion per annum for mitigation up till 2030, and another $50 billion per annum for adaptation up to 2050. And the estimates are that the private sector is going to have to deliver 2/3 of that. So I think something that goes overlooked when considering Africa is that there are very different types of financing needed, right? Given the African landscape, 90% of the private sector are SMEs, and if we're quite honest, really the preponderance of companies are small and micro. The medium and the large are further, and farther between. And so we need to have the financing that fits that spectrum of sizes and needs and where a company is on its maturity path. So it's not just debt, it's not just equity or trade finance or supply chain finance, but also things like guarantees and concessional finance and risk-sharing facilities. We have to get a lot more creative in our financial structuring. And there's capacity. We need not just knowledge, as a lot of people are out there producing, but networking, mentorships. We need to invest in accelerators and incubators. In a lot of African economies, the ecosystem support for entrepreneurs is very nascent. There's 4 big countries on the continent that have really established good ecosystems, and they're the usual suspects: Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, Egypt. And no wonder most of the tech financing in the last decade have gone to companies in those countries.
Jules, I'd like to come to you now, and Mary has mentioned that as a continent, we have to have more creative financial structures. She's talked about guarantees as one of those. And perhaps you can just tell us, recognizing the perceived risks associated with financing SMEs in Africa, how does the African Guarantee Fund continue to bridge that gap? And what message would you convey, particularly to financial institutions, especially private-held financial firms? Let's think of the impact investors, the VCs, private equity.
Thank you, Terian. Yeah, so my name is Jules Ngankam. I'm the CEO of the African Guarantee Fund. So we are present in 45 countries in Africa, and we do provide financial guarantee and technical assistance to bridge the SME financing gap. As you mentioned, that is reality, that gap between the real risk and the perceived risk. And most of the time we have this gap because, financial institutions are not able to assess properly the risk. And this is what creates that gap. The real risk is there, but they do believe that the risk is high up there. And because of that now, they will charge maybe a higher fees, a higher interest rate to the SME. So what we've been trying to do at AGF was to identify what were the causes, the reason of this perceived or this perception gap, the gap between the real risk and the perceived risk. And this gap is a consequence of many reasons or many other gaps. So I would say the first gap is the liquidity gap. Here we are talking about the green project. There is always a challenge, for the financial institution between the CapEx and the OpEx. Green is good, we all agree. But the challenge is that those green projects require a higher upfront payment. So let's say you have an SME, they want to acquire some green equipment. It means that upfront they have to pay, they need a higher amount, a higher amount of investment compared to the traditional investment. Because when we talk about green, we need always to compare that to the traditional investment and put ourselves in the shoes of a banker. Like, how do they make the decision process? On one project, they need less of upfront payment, less of upfront kind of investment. But on a different project, they need more. So what are they going to pick? So the liquidity gap is very critical in the sense that they need to engage with a higher amount at the very beginning. So that's the liquidity gap. CapEx versus OpEx. Green project, the CapEx is higher, but the OpEx is lower in the long run. But when you look at the traditional project, the CapEx tend to be low, but the OpEx is higher. And this is what is happening to all of us. I'm sure that people in the room, you want to have a solar panel at your home, but people will tell you, initially, this is the initial investment you need to put up front. Because you cannot afford it, you'll better say, okay, I will pay maybe Kenya Power this amount of money, but for the next 10 years, because you cannot afford the initial investment. And I would say lastly is the information gap. These projects are quite new. How do you assess the viability of this project? There is a lack of track record, there's a lack of historical data, and through our technical assistance program, we try to work together with financial institutions to better assess those type of projects. So we equip them, we work with a range of consultants to know how to assess the risk of this type of project, to give them more comfort. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jules. Michael, I'd like to rope you into the conversation now. What are your specific expectations from startups in Africa to increase their appetite for more investment? And perhaps you can add, what strategies do you consider particularly effective for fostering growth?
Thanks for the question, and good morning, everyone. I also wanted to thank the IntelliCup team for having me here. It's obviously a pleasure. I've had professionally in Sub-Saharan Africa with responsibilities that often what we've realized when it comes to early stage startup and small businesses is that some basic fundamentals often coming the way of your sort of rate of survival. So I'll stick to my sort of original strategy and speak to a few qualitative aspects and intangibles that we believe are quite key. And I'm glad that the chairman of the Avishkar group already brushed on a couple of these. It validates also what we do, and there are true VC responsibility probably comes comes in a bit later in the sort of business life cycle of companies. One is that I keep reminding myself and the businesses and the partners we work with, things do not grow in a straight line. This might sort of, come across as self-apparent, but it's surprising how many times we keep forgetting about this. And this is true not only in the sort of world of sort of economics and financial markets. It's certainly true for, accounting items that businesses have to do on a daily basis, like sort of revenues and margins and operating profits. But it's also true, to be honest, all the way down to sort of personal life. So I think if you take sort of this view, I think one of the practical learnings is that because if you take a step back and you see that growth ultimately is delivered, on a daily basis through sort of troughs and highs and busts and booms, is let's spend a bit less time on the complexity of the financial model and the stochastic forecasting of unknown variables. For those who are familiar with the space of energy access, I think we've seen a few failures out there that can be ascribed to a certain extent to misunderstanding the nature of their operations.
All right, thank you, Michael. Oscar, I'd like to rope you into the conversation now. And as you briefly introduce the Nairobi International Finance Center, perhaps you can tell us, in light of the INFC's notable partnerships with Prudential PLC and the City UK to deepen local financial and capital markets, what specific actions do you believe private sector players need to take to accelerate growth?
Thank you, Terianne. It's great to be here. We've heard from, so the Nairobi International Financial Center is a new operating environment that's been set up by the government under the Ministry of Finance, the National Treasury, to create efficiencies and predictabilities within the ecosystem to make it easier and more attractive for investors to invest and financial institutions to set up, but also for businesses and startups to incorporate and benefit from some of the work that we're doing, some of the services that we offer, and the incentives that we've put in place. The way we do this as a center is by handling three things. One is that making it easier for companies to really set up within Kenya and within the center. The other thing we do is we're looking at what incentives are necessary to put in place. So we know, for example, if we look at tax, we know that the tax environment can be unpredictable. We know that there's several changes and higher rates of tax that are being put in place, particularly more recently. So we've looked at things like capital gains tax, which impacts private equity and venture capital investors. As they look to exit an investment, they are liable to pay CGT. So we've introduced a tax incentive in the income tax legislation for firms within the center to give them predictability so that the same rate of tax applies when they exit. It was the same rate that applied when they entered the particular investment. I should point out that at the apex of the NIFC structure is something called the Steering Council. The Steering Council is chaired by the President of the Republic of Kenya, and it's constituted with the other chairs of all the various regulators, the Treasury, and the Attorney General's office. So it's a decision-making body that's been set up to unlock obstacles that exist in the development of Nairobi as a financial center and as a hub. So this sort of architecture is there, and I think that the more input we have in terms of what can be improved, the more we can do to help fix those issues.
All right, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's appreciate our amazing experts and panelists this morning, Mary, Jules, Michael, and of course, Oscar. I'll hand it over to Theo to take us to the next session.
Thank you very much. This has been an extensive panel of financiers looking to support enterprises while they're making great strides. I like that we brought on board different capital providers, and the idea is it enough for individuals to drive the solutions? And if it's not, then how can we move on or leverage in pooling different capital providers, bringing together a more focused patient capital investors who are geared towards impact? So on that note, I have the immense pleasure of inviting Santosh Singh, Managing Director at Intellicap, who will shed more light on Intellicap's partnership with Convergence to create blended finance solutions.
Good morning. My name is Santosh, and I'll talk slightly more about climate and a little bit about blended finance. So, my passion is to scale climate enterprises. So I work for Jose, I work for Gayatri, I work for Mary, I work for Oscar. I work for everyone who is trying to fight the climate battle. Now, how we do it? I think the panel before that had lots of insights, so I'm not going there. And I made a mistake. I did not share my speaking notes with my bosses before, so they almost spoke about all what I wanted to say about Intellicap. So the key thing that the panel had was that we need more investable enterprises and we need more capital. Just to give you a glimpse of that, there are lots of millions and billions on the table we are discussing. We are talking about $4.5 trillion at least every year for 30 to 40 years to address climate change. And what we have right now is just a fraction of that. So while billions might sound a big number, but it's not in the climate space. Now, why this number is not likely to be achieved? You know, it's good to take a reality check that what we are lacking. And one thing I heard on the panel is that there is a dearth of scalable, commercially investable enterprises. Intellicap has been very, very privileged to get your support, and probably we will look at these enterprises, scale and solve some of these problems in next 5 to 10 years. We took this as a challenge, and I'm very pleased to say that we have a very, very competent partner that we are joining hands with Convergence Blended Finance, and we would be signing an MOU and a partnership to drive a number of initiatives in this space in blended finance in Global South. With this, let me invite my colleague from Convergence Blended Finance, Mr. Akif, Associate Director, and he will talk about what this facility is going to do and what are the key big success areas that we are targeting.
I suspect I stand between coffee and all of you. It's been a long session, so I'll keep it brief.
There is an award function.
Award function, okay.
Yeah,
so we got to move it on.
Yeah.
But I'll keep it brief so you can indulge me for 35 seconds to a minute. First of all, it's wonderful to be here with all of you today. I want to start by thanking you, your team, our team at Convergence in bringing this all together in the form of an MOU. But why are we having this MOU? I couldn't have said it better than all of the speakers that were here before me. My friend Jules from the African Guarantee Fund is a blended institution. IFC is one of the largest investors in blended finance solutions across the continent using a range of different instruments. Responsibility manages a range of different blended funds. Ampersand has received money from the Rwanda Green Fund, which is using blended finance. So everyone here before was a living, breathing testament of why we're doing this. Now, what are we doing? We're looking to build capacity of a range of different stakeholders, because that is the inherent definition of blended finance, different forms of capital coming together. We're looking to build ecosystems, I guess the word of the morning. And most importantly, facilitate the mobilization of this scarce concessional capital into transactions and projects to de-risk them. So we're having a session tomorrow on blended finance at 11 o'clock. If you want to learn more, if you want to know more, I invite all of you to attend that session. And again, thank you for having us here, and we look forward to this MOU.
Thank you, Akif. So the one-line goal that my CEO has told me that mobilize as much private capital as possible in the best possible way so that we can solve the climate challenge. I did say that I work for all of you, but my salary still comes from approval of Vineet and Vikas, so I have to listen to that and I have to deliver on that. With that, I think I'm inviting all of you. There are several sessions happening over the next 2 days, and there are several initiatives that Karnika is leading here, so you go and talk to her and you can know about a lot of things that we are doing. But right now, I hand it over to my colleague for the next of the sessions.
Thank you very much, Santosh, and also Akif for sharing those sentiments and also future prospects under blended finance. And then, ladies and gentlemen, apologies, you were told there is coffee right now. Next segment is the award session, and we'll be having a thrilling session whereby we'll have a few of the next electrifying grand reveal for Sankalp Awards. The Sankalp Awards across the world have been celebrations of outstanding social entrepreneurs and a showcase of resilient, innovative, and successful businesses. I would like to welcome back my colleague, Terian Chebet, back to the stage to present these finalists and moderate the announcement of the Sankalp Award winners. Welcome.
All right, thank you so much, Theo. And now we come to the thrilling session where we will be awarding a number of organizations. I'd first like to announce the finalists. The first one is Agribusiness Solutions. Let's give them a warm round of applause. AgroHas International Private Limited as well. Let's keep clapping for them. HealthX Africa, Keep It Cool, Kwanza Tukule Foods Limited, MedTrack Technologies Limited, Nazava Water Filters Limited, Rio Fish, Roso, Toothpick Company Limited, and Tractor on the Go Limited. Let's appreciate the finalists for this award. And our first award this evening is the Ecosystem Award. I'd just like to remind you that this was, the winner of the session was voted in through the website, and for this I'd like to welcome Elizabeth Kobishli and Nora Koigi to hand over the Ecosystem Award.
We were joking yesterday we should have prepared an Oscar joke, but we didn't quite get round to it. But we're so thrilled, right, to be able to do this.
And the winner is AgroSahas.
But the music we making it touch your soul. Take you to a place you've never been before. Africa to make a me and two most banner.
Just a quick word so that our audience can know a little bit about you. AIPL aids 10,000 Ugandan farmers introducing DigiFarmer, that's AgroHas novel app ecosystem. Let's give them another warm round of applause. Please stay on stage as we head into our next one. To present our second runner-up, I'd like to invite Ashish Patel and Maike Brochus.
Morning, everyone. I think you're going to do the opening. I'm just going to do the reading. How's that? Okay. That's a fair distribution. That's great. All right, we'd like to just announce the second runner-up to the Sankalp Africa Awards. And that's MedTrack Technologies.
A warm round of applause.
But the music we making it touch your soul. Take you to a place you never been before. Africa tonight come here to most banner. I'm Kenyan, so you know I'm a marathon runner.
All right, a hearty congratulations to MedTrack. They provide centralized access to patient information by linking it to national biometric IDs, easing the process of transfer of health data across multiple care points by patients and health providers. Let's give MedTrack another warm round of applause. Please remain on stage. You may have your seats. All right, and for the first runner-up, I'd like to invite Ambassador Gurjit Singh to join us on stage to award our first runners-up.
So it's getting warm, and the winner is Keep It Cool.
provides proximate refrigerated cooling boxes and transport to underserved smallholder fishermen and fish farmers in East Africa. Let's give them another warm round of applause. Congratulations to Keep It Cool. And to present the winner of the Sanlam Africa Awards, I would like to welcome Karnika Yadai and Vikas Bali.
Okay, the winner for the Sankalp Africa Awards 2024 is, any guesses? Any guesses? There are few names on the board. That's for sure, yes. Okay, so the winner is Toothpick.
Let's give a warm round of applause to the winner of the Sankalp Africa Awards.
This is amazing to get recognition for work that we've been doing for a very long time. We started this research in Kenya in 2007, and it was based on technology that my dad actually developed over 40 years. And this is the pilot for the world for this biological herbicide technology. It's one of the first in the world. It's really exciting to have it driven by African scientists. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francis.
First of all, I'll have to thank everyone for their support so far. Our journey starts here with these sort of conferences where we create demand for the products that our farmers are supplying here. So, and of course, big shout out to our supporters, our investors, and of course our team who have made this possible. It was long time coming, and so I'm very happy to be recognized as well. Thank you.
I want to thank the Sankalp and IntelliCup team for the opportunity to be here and for this award. MedTrack aims to ensure that patients have their records everywhere they go, so that they can be able to have better healthcare system in Africa. And we are grateful that this effort is being recognized, and we hope to do more and improve healthcare in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sankalp and organizing team, for giving us this opportunity here. This success belongs to all of our 10,000 farmers who are in Uganda, as well as our team, which is consistent from last 3.5 years, toiling very hard into the ground and making sure that our farmers are able to increase their incomes. And thank you so much for this platform, that we are also able to see other entrepreneurs. We are also able to see good work they are doing, and the investors which we are meeting here. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I stand here humbled and inspired by the depth of insight, passion, and commitment showcased by each speaker today. Together, we have embarked on a quest to ignite Africa's potential for a just transition, and the journey has only just begun. Now, get ready to immerse yourselves together with everyone at the 11th Sankalp Africa Summit 2024. Thank you very much for your audience, and hopefully see you during the seminar. Thank you very much.
Negwa modhia kora wa mwaki Anya chere tati ako hike